Welcome to the opening whistle of the weekly recess. We are the Jersey Nerds. I'm Mitchell Lee here. I was about to call myself Jeff because for some reason that's the name I gave myself in this here meeting alongside Tommy Grant, Connor Vandermark, Nick Izzo. Guys, I want to say it was a fun weekend of NFL action. There's a lot of really bad quarterback play. I don't know what to call it, but I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves at least.
It was a fun weekend because there's a lot of close games. I enjoyed it. I This is probably the first weekend so far this season that I've actually stayed up and watched the games because I was interested to see the outcomes because they were so close.
Oh, okay. Because I took melatonin during the first quarter of the Bills Giants game, just because you couldn't make me care. Um,
Yeah,
but I went
I
back and
agree.
watched a lot of that because it was a much closer game than I previously expected.
I was not expecting that outcome at all to be that close.
Yeah, me
Um,
being a fan of the team, I did not think the Giants were gonna play defense as well as they did. Um, that really showed a lot, but at the same time, like it just continues to show you just how inept they are with their offensive play.
what was your most frustrating part of that game?
The most frustrating part, I would say, and see this part's tough because he's just the backup, and this is really the first game that he played. But I feel like the I feel like the Giants had a chance to win that if they kicked the two field goals instead of I guess trying to get the touchdowns. And what I mean by that is, in the second, right before the halftime, Tyrod Taylor like audibles into a run play when they didn't have a timeout, and that the defense is just gonna stay on top of the last guy in the huddle to prevent the next play from happening. So rather than get 3 points there, they got nothing, and then he missed some throws, and then at the end the clock and the play management, it just that probably frustrated me more than anything. And then I mean also the refs to me missed a whole bunch of calls with holding at the end of Darren Waller. You had just like a bunch of missed defensive holdings. So I would say between Tyrod Taylor's and the refs, that's probably what frustrated me the most. Defense played like hell though. I mean, they made Josh Allen look pretty normal. So that was nice to see.
I mean, they held
Um,
them for the entire game. They just fell apart in that last quarter.
They
Buffalo
did.
just came in strong
They
and
did
you can only hold down Josh Allen so
for so
long.
long. Yeah,
He might be able to give you some
absolutely.
turnovers, but he's also going to have some big plays. Him and Stephon Diggs, you're just not going to be able to shut them down, but you might be able to contain them for a
Yeah,
little bit, and that's what the Giants did. I've had a big problem with the ref ball. The first few weeks of this season, it just feels like the refs are so much more involved in determining
it's
outcomes of
bad.
games.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's horrendous. And as a Jets fan, I feel like I've seen it a ton more, but it's not even like the Jets have had like a big call go against them in basically every game this season. But then I turn on any other game
It's the same
and
story every
there's
game.
tons of big plays getting wiped off the board
Yep.
and just it's not what you come to the game to see. It's not what you turn on the game to see. It's really it's not good. I'm not a fan of it whatsoever.
It's almost as if that there's a quota for the refs to like throw flags, and you look at some replays, and you as a fan you understand what they deem as reviewable and non-reviewable, but like when they show the play on the jumbotron and it's just like the ref just blatantly misses it, you just wonder like what pair of eyes are you looking like at this game that you just you missed that, or you felt that you needed to call that? And yeah, like you said,
I've heard
mentioned
the
a bunch of
following
games.
phrase. I've heard the following phrase more in the first 6 weeks of this season than I have the last 2 or 3 years combined. Ooh, I don't know about that one.
Yep. Yep.
Like, I've heard more open criticism of officials, and I'm not sure what they were seeing right there from play by play and color commentary
Yep.
in the booth. And I'm not saying that those guys are the be all end all of what is or isn't the right call. I'm just saying that I'm hearing a lot more of it than
Yes.
usual.
For certain.
I'll say this. I wish that there was more accountability for the refs. Like one
None
thing,
right now.
I'm not an NBA watcher. I just never really got into it, but I do like some storylines and stuff. One thing the NBA definitely got right is having like the refs be able to have like a post game, like they can do a post game conference and like they'll talk about a call that they may have missed and like yeah they own up to it, or like they can have the reporters talk to them. And I think it's something that I think sports should have more of, because of the fact that there's so much gray area. Like you can say like, hey, I from how I saw it, this is how I saw it. At least have an explanation. Don't let things be open ended and let everybody speculate. Because to me, like that's just no that causes more harm than good. And we can at least see how they can try to justify it. And to do a shitty job justifying it, that's their own fault. Because the fact that if you're trying to convince us that you made the right call, or own up to it. It's like, yeah, I screwed up. It happens, part of the game. And I think them having that accountability would at least it would at least give the game itself more of a it gives it more integrity, I guess you can say, of the watching of itself. Because if they know they're going to have to be accountable, then they have to make sure that they're making the right. They have to be sure of their calls. And one thing that drives me nuts too is like, especially when plays are at like, when a touchdown is close to being scored, call it a touchdown. You have a free review, take it. Like,
Well, the thing about that is, I understand that
Because
mentality, but it's also supposed to be, at least, and this will kind of go into the big discussion from week 6, is that if something is called a touchdown on the field, it's supposed to be a touchdown unless there's clear and obvious evidence
yeah,
that it was not a touchdown. If it's called not a touchdown on the field, same thing, just the reverse.
I agree.
And the two biggest storylines from this week were both of the teams that came in undefeated were no
Yep.
longer undefeated. The 49ers lost at the Cleveland Browns, and the Eagles lost to the New York Jets. Yay. We'll, we'll, we'll get into that here in a bit, but both of those games had calls that were just massively weird. The 49ers basically had the game won, but the Browns got it was like a helmet to helmet call when it was very clearly not a helmet to helmet hit.
Yeah.
And it extended a drive for the Cleveland Browns that should have been over. And the 49ers, did they play their best game? Absolutely not. They had a lot of people leave the game with injuries. But the call on the field there did not help whatsoever. And the Eagles had a touchdown after a 19 play drive in the first quarter where it was ruled that Jalen Hurts did not score a touchdown. And Fox showed 2 replays, and neither of them looked like he got across. But they said that they ruled it a touchdown, and you have to have clear evidence to overturn that. And nothing that I saw said, hey, even said, we're considering this. And they didn't bother to show another replay of it for the rest of the game, which was just beyond sketchy to me. It was very strange. So we had both of those games. Now, Cleveland and the Jets both did everything they needed to do to win those games. And I'm glad that they won the games. And the 49ers and Eagles, every team's going to lose, and it's about how you respond from that. Specifically, the Eagles, I think, need a little bit of a wake up call because they've been playing with their food a lot this season, and you kind of need to take an L to wake you up sometimes.
It's true.
Uh, which of these games do you think gave you the most as far as I don't know about that particular team? Or was it just, hey, Browns and Jets came out and looked great?
No, Philadelphia. They've been very suspect for a while now with that offense. Like their defense is injured. I get it, but you with Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, like Devontae Smith, DeAndre Swift, you expect them to run over teams. And I'm really curious of them losing their offensive coordinator has affected them in their play calling because obviously they are not the high flying offense that they were last year. And I think it really they deserve to be put underneath the microscope of can they get it done when it really counts?
That was my takeaway as well, because clearly the Eagles offensive coordinator, I want to say his name is Brian Johnson, who
That's sound.
has
I'm gonna Google it. Keep going.
yes, it's
Connor,
Brian
Connor's on the
Johnson.
case.
Brian Johnson is their offensive coordinator. He came in for Shane Steichen when he left for the Colts. And clearly his game plan was DJ Reed, Sauce Gardner are going to be out for the Jets. We are going to throw the ball all over the yard. But the Eagles, despite how good Hurts and AJ Brown and Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith are, they are a running football team. They've got one of the best offensive lines in the league. And when they
That's
can
right.
get the run game going with DeAndre Swift, that is when they are at their best because then the passing game is just wide open in the second half if you're able to run the ball so well. They ran the ball 22 times, 10 times with DeAndre Swift for 18 yards. 10 carries for 18 yards for DeAndre Swift. And Jalen Hurts was under pressure all night, which is he's not used to being under pressure. The offensive line, he only got sacked twice, but one of those he really got sacked, the ball knocked out, but it was intercepted because I guess it was technically a forward pass. It was picked off. That could have easily been a third sack. He escaped a lot of others and just threw the ball out of bounds. But the plan was, hey, we're going to throw the ball. Devontae Smith had 5 catches on 11 targets. That's not usually the case with Devontae Smith. He's much more of a playmaker usually, and he had some big drops. AJ Brown was doing his thing. But yes, the Eagles definitely need to be put under the microscope for this. This was a game that was there for the taking. They had 4 turnovers. The Jets defense did a fantastic job, but you also think of the Jets and you think Breece Hall running the ball. Breece Hall only had 39 yards rushing. 12 carries, 39 yards. This was not the Breece Hall showcase that it was in Denver. Eagles could have totally won this game, gone 6-0. Nick
Like,
Sirianni's got to come under fire for this too.
like here's the thing though. Like overall though, like the Eagles defense did not play bad either. Like the
You got
the
pressure all night.
the Jets' third down efficiency during this game was 2 for 11. Like that's garbage. Like you're creating stops for yourself, but when your offense is not when your offense is not putting up more than 20 points from the weapons that you have, that's not acceptable. It really isn't. They shouldn't have put themselves in that position in the first place. And I thought you put it very nicely where they were playing with their food and they muffed it. Simple as that.
Yeah, this was a game that should have the last 4 games for DeAndre Swift because they didn't really play him much in the Pats game. 4.1 yards a carry, 4 yards a carry, 8.1 yards a carry, 6.3 yards a carry to 1.8 against the Jets. Everyone wants to point the finger at Jalen Hurts for turning the ball over. I pointed at we couldn't ever get the ground game going and abandoned it at a point. And the Jets defense just kind of closed in. Jermaine Johnson, Bryce Huff looked incredible. And Zach Wilson has truly bought into I'm going to be a game manager. I'm not going to run around, do a bunch of crazy stuff, throw the ball to the other team. I'm going to be a game manager because this team can win games if I just play like that. And that's proven to be true.
I
Yes, it
agree.
has.
I agree. If he just kind of stays within that, and he just, like you said, doesn't try to do too much with it, then you can kind of rely on the defense, so to speak, because they kept the Eagles to what was it, 14 points, right?
Yep.
So I mean,
They
when
didn't
you
score in the second half.
right when you hold the team like that, even if they have been suspect all year, even when you hold them to not scoring in the entire back end, that's amazing. So I give massive credit to the Jets defense for being on the field for so long and just grinding out all those drives.
Does the 49ers loss give you any pause about Brock Purdy?
I don't think it gives me any
Not
pause about Brock Purdy per se. Um, he's not going to be amazing every game, of course, but you're going to have those games where you definitely see oh, he's a newer quarterback, so you see the moments in it. Um, Definitely with Debo Samuel out, he looks to Brandon Ayuk a lot and to uh, McCaffrey out of the backfield. But once McCaffrey was ruled out for, I think it was the rest of the game, then you saw a lot of the offense was definitely suspect for sure.
like we don't have any weapons. Like I don't. I never seen like Purdy to me doesn't have the elite level like I can do it myself attribute from, but like San Francisco, you don't need that because you're surrounded by amazing players. Kittle, Debo, McCaffrey, and Ayuk are amazing offensive weapons to have. But when you don't have that, when you lose half of them, and let's get credit where credit's due, Cleveland's defense has been great all year,
Sure.
and that's a big challenge to go against when you're missing some of your huge weapons that really are game changers. CMC can literally put a team on his back when he wants to. So I don't blame them from this. I don't blame them from this loss. Cleveland's defense is the reason why they're still as highly regarded in their division. So I think they're fine. Like there's no alarm bells ringing for them.
Plus, not that you
But
want to
Philly,
throw blame, but the kicker did miss a field goal at the end.
like I
Purdy
think
put him in a position to win that game at the
He
end.
did. He did.
like Sunday Night Football next week is going to be a real tell for the Eagles. Like they're playing Miami, so
Damn right, baby.
I hate to say it, Tommy, but I think that this is a game where the Dolphins defense gets exposed.
I'm taking the over for the Miami.
I think
And,
both. I
and
think both defenses are going to get
I mean,
exposed.
going
the
into the
Bills already
season,
kind of did that. But
yes, going into the season, Eagles were definitely one of the teams I was looking at that I didn't think Miami was going to be able to handle. But not to trash on the Jets or anything negative towards the Jets, but after this past game, their
no, I
defense
totally
wasn't
understand
look
that.
their defense wasn't looking strong. So I don't know. I could see it being another close game, kind of like how Eagles Jets and Giants Bills were this week. I can see that being the situation next week where it comes down to the wire.
I think it's going
But
to be an offensive
me, of
shootout.
course, I want Miami to win, so I'm hoping Miami will pull it off. But I don't know.
Well, the Dolphins 5-1. Now you're
Yeah,
tied for the best record in the league. You spotted the Panthers a 14-0 advantage in the first quarter and then just came back guns blazing. Raheem Mostert, Tyreek Hill, and the Miami offensive show. A 42-21 win. Again, it's the Panthers. I'm not sure how much you can really take away from that game,
It
but
was an expected win for me. I
you beat
wasn't
the team you were
surprised by
supposed
any
to
chance.
beat.
Yes.
Took care of business, which, as we've seen across the league, is not necessarily a given week to week. There were a lot of other teams that I thought were really impressive. The Detroit Lions going into Tampa and
Yeah.
easily taking care of the Buccaneers.
Yep.
Uh, Lions, I mean, Jared Goff is playing, I think, the best football of his career right now.
Yes, he
It,
is.
Yep.
he's been accurate, he's been on time, and him and Amon Ra have a great connection. If Jamison Williams can just give them a couple big plays a game like he did against Tampa, they really have a complete receiving core with Laporta. You got Gibbs out of the backfield throwing him the ball. This Lions offense can really be something, and I think that they're a force to be reckoned with in the NFC, up there with teams like Philadelphia, San Francisco, and I told you guys, I'm not a fan of them by any means, but we needed to kind of cool off with the Cowboys' hatred and breathe a little bit. I said they would get over 10 wins. Connor was very adamantly opposed to that possibility. But they go on the road, they beat the Chargers, and I think that they overcame some bad coaching. But they were also gifted a pretty lackluster Justin Herbert performance in that game as well. But they made plays when they needed to make plays. CD Lamb looked good. Micah Parsons stepped up late. Cowboys are going to have some games like that this year.
Well, the next two games are the Rams and the Eagles. So, hey, if they can figure it out offensively, then I'll have a lot more confidence. Because defense is what's going to win them games, and that was definitely proven last night. Whatever night that was. Today is Tuesday, by the way, for those who don't know, for recording this.
Yes, October 17th. Why did I want to say St. Patrick's Day? That's not what this is.
Yes. So, like, I think they're fine. Like, I have no high expectation. Like, their expectations like the most middling thing for me. Like, they have like divisional matchups, but like they can beat the Giants. They can probably beat the Commies. Commies can figure it out. Commanders, for those you don't know, I call them that.
Yeah, really ironic for what state it's for.
We've got to
That's
go.
true.
We've got to go right back on the Desmond Ritter thing. By the way,
Mm-hmm.
he gave us some signs of life,
Again.
and now he takes them away. And they would have won that game with they win that game with Taylor Heineke at quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely again, I'm not gonna be high on them. Like they are. I have no Super Bowl hopes for them at all. Like there is nothing to me that guarantees to me as that them being an elite team. Like
Oh, Atlanta?
no, let's talk about the Cowboys.
Oh, Dallas.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just don't think that Dak wasn't as good yesterday as people are apparently saying that he was. Because that offense was going without putting up points for quite some time. Again, this was a 10-10 game going into the fourth quarter. And the Chargers defense wasn't doing anything spectacular.
yeah, like the Chargers defense has been again a fine defense. Like you let
I think
27
that's even kind of generous.
That's John. Yeah, like 27 points against the Titans, 24 against the Vikings, and then you play the Raiders, who are the Raiders. Like they are hit and miss. So like they're not like they won't scare you, and putting only 20 points against them is definitely a cause for concern.
I'm concerned about the Seahawks. That was the game in the 1 o'clock window that I was watching the most intensely was Seahawks and Bengals. And Geno Smith, it just felt like his offensive line was leaving him out to die all game.
Yeah.
particularly late in the game when they had receivers getting open, but by the time that Gino could pull the trigger, he was on the ground. And the run game never really got going because no holes were opening up. And the Bengals, they were kind of in the same boat where the Seahawks secondary was playing really well. And this was a matchup that the Seahawks, watching the game, Seattle should have won this game. But their offensive line kept them from being able to make the plays late
and be
to
effective.
seal the deal. I mean, guys were getting open. This was the first game that I've seen where it's like, oh, Jackson Smith and Jigba, there he is. Things are happening. Gino's hitting
Yeah.
Tyler Lockett downfield.
D-
DK
DK Metcalf
DK
was
had
getting
his
angry.
moments. DK Metcalf was, throwing
Showing people
dudes
to the
to the
ground.
ground
Yeah.
after the play. But the Bengals, I mean, they had 46 yards rushing and Joe Burrow threw for 185.
Yeah.
Why aren't you winning this game? This
Yeah.
is a game that you absolutely should have won.
I think
They should have won that.
doesn't Seattle play more zone defense too? If I remember that correctly.
So
From what I
that's what they
saw,
played during the Legion of Boom all the time.
it didn't look like it because Trey Brown had an interception where he was man to man on I think T Higgins, and it was just like teach tape coverage, fantastic work, and Devon Witherspoon was holding his own against I think Jamar
He's good
Chase for
too.
most of that game too. I mean Jamar Chase had 80 yards, but he had 6 catches on 13 targets. So there are plenty of opportunities that just weren't being converted. T Higgins at 20 yards.
But the one thing I want
Totally
the one
winnable
that
game.
the one thing I want to highlight though is Joe Burrow did the same thing he did last week against Arizona, where he kept hyper targeting Jamar Chase and only catching 6 catches out of 13. It's a pretty damn good job by the Seattle's defense. I'm kind of curious if other teams might try to switch it up on the Burrow.
Devon Witherspoon might be the defensive rookie of the year. He's been incredible so
He
far. I know
has.
he missed a few games. Nick can tell you firsthand with the Giants that they
Yes.
were talking about him all broadcast
Yep.
on that Monday Night Football game, and watching them against the Bengals. They didn't talk about him quite as much, but his presence was definitely felt. And, Tariq Woolen had a fantastic year this year, and it's like he's been completely pushed aside because of how good Witherspoon has been. And Trey Brown's been good for them as well. But the Seahawks, they're not going to win the division because the 49ers are right there.
Yeah.
So they're going to be fighting for a wild
Definitely.
card spot with teams
Yeah.
like the Cowboys, with teams like the Rams, with I don't really think anyone in the NFC North is going to be fighting for that, but the NFC South, maybe the Falcons, Saints. So the Seahawks should be a playoff team, but wins like this are the difference between you playing the NFC South champion in the first round versus playing like the 49ers or Lions or Eagles in the first round.
Yeah.
These are the games you have to win.
This is not the right week, but it's from what I can see. I'm looking at PFF, but it definitely looks like the Seahawks are one of the highest running zones right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, those corners were doing a fantastic job, and they held up their end of the bargain. It was the boys in the trenches protecting Gino that didn't do what they were supposed to do. Are there any teams week 6 that caught your eye? Good, bad? Probably not indifferent, but just
Pulling it up right now. Give me 1 second. I have so many tabs open right now. It's that this is my life when it comes to like bouncing around. Like that's how my brain works.
Mm-hmm.
And I won week 6. From what I can see, I was happy that Jacksonville got their offense again a little bit. because
I don't know how much of that was them getting their offense together or Gardner Minshew just throwing the ball right to him and giving them good field position.
Oh yeah, he was
that,
slinging
He
it
that,
looked
right to
he
the
looked
other team.
horrible.
He looked awful. Gardner Minshew that game.
but it's nice to see though. Like that's something that I've been very concerned about. I've been keeping an eye on for them.
But Trevor Lawrence might be hurt. And they play
That's
Thursday night.
true. That's
They
true.
play the Saints on Thursday night, and I know the Saints just lost the Texans, but that was no fault of the defense.
That's a bad matchup for Jacksonville.
It is, and it's a road game for them too, on a short week with an injured quarterback.
Yeah,
Yep, no,
that's
thank
got
you.
that's got a Saints victory written all over it.
Yeah, I kind of hope they don't play Lawrence in that game and they give him the week to recover because the Saints are a physical team. They've got a better defensive line than I would have expected, and they play well on the back end.
Speaking of hurt QBs, Justin Fields out too,
Yeah, the
and
Bears.
Richardson's now gone for the rest of the
Richardson's
season.
out for the season, so it's going to be the Gardner Minshew show, and I do expect that he'll be better than he was against Jacksonville, but it can't be like that. That
I'm just
was
sad.
horrendous.
I'm just sad for Richardson because I was really
Yeah,
enjoying
man.
I was really enjoying watching him play, and
I was too. I was looking forward to seeing more Anthony Richardson because we didn't really get the Anthony Richardson CJ Stroud battle. Richardson was in for about the first quarter, dominated, and then left with an injury. So
Yep.
now it's CJ Stroud being the lone AFC South rookie quarterback unless we get Will Levis sometime soon. Which, given the way Malik Willis looked when he filled in for Tannehill last week, that could happen soon. Which the Ryan Tannehill era in Tennessee, I think, needs to come to an end. Whether it's
Oh, yeah.
Willis, whether it's Levis, they need to go ahead and give those guys looks because Tannehill is hurt now and not playing well.
He never played that well, especially when
Yeah,
he's
he's,
on.
No.
he's been mediocre
No.
pretty much
No.
all
There's
his
a lot to
career.
be desired, and he just
He was fantastic when Arthur Smith was the offensive coordinator and A.J. Brown was there in Tennessee. When it was Corey Davis and A.J. Brown and Arthur Smith in Tennessee, Ryan Tannehill was shockingly good. Like they could have won a Super Bowl, but it just didn't happen. They ran into Mahomes every year, and that was a matchup that they were always going to have trouble with. CJ Stroud, once again, maybe not his best game, threw his first interception. That was something that was going to happen, but they find a way to win. D'Amico Ryans really turning that defense around. But Derek Carr, it's been a rough start to his Saints tenure.
Yes, it definitely has.
I'm still curious how much that injury he had is lingering.
Yeah, he got hurt a few weeks ago, and it was thought maybe he'd miss a few weeks, and he missed no time whatsoever.
Yeah, and no, like your offense for them, you have Olave, who's a great downfield threat, and it's nice to see them, working schemes for him. But at the same time, like you have to be able to, be effective overall as a team. Like, you have Michael Thomas, who is older. You have Kamara, who is also getting. How old is Kamara now? Like he's like what 20, 26?
Oh, he's got to be older than that.
Probably older than that. Like he's getting up there. Like this is
He's 28.
He's 28, so which is quite old for running back. So
for running back, yes. For a general person, 28 is just fine.
No, he's literally a year younger than I am, and not even probably. And like the fact that the times that the clock on the offense is ticking when it comes to the age of the players, at least of the dynamic positions, and like I want Derek Carr to succeed, but I also want to see he needs to get healthy first, and I think once he does get to 100%, like in probably 2 or 3 more weeks, they're probably a little bit different. Like they'll probably be a little more explosive. because he played well with Devontae Adams last year, and those two had a great connection with each other. Now I'm hoping that for himself and Olave. So we'll see. Also, kind of a switch. I heard a rumor somewhere. What team was he going to join? It
I
was the
think I know what you're referring to.
Mr. Rex Ryan.
That's not that's not happening.
Yeah. No, actually, it did. So
Broncos defensive
Broncos.
coordinator job.
Yeah.
That's not happening.
According to Schefter, Rex Ryan isn't coming to the Broncos, quote, right now. And that was as of 3 hours ago, as of Sports Illustrated.
I
So
don't think that's a thing that's
the whitest
I don't
teeth
think
in the broadcast.
yeah.
I don't expect him to leave his
I
current
don't think
gig.
that's happening.
No.
Yeah, I think he enjoys being a talking head and wouldn't leave it unless he was going to be a head coach.
Or making a ton of money.
Yeah, but I bet he's making money at ESPN.
That would not surprise me.
Last question for you guys. If you had to start a team today and you had your choice, all right, you got this team in front of you. Pretty solid team. But you have to start it with either Desmond Ridder or Mac Jones at quarterback. Who you going with?
Matt Jones. No explanation, just Matt Jones.
My gut says Ritter. The reason for that is because of the fact that he actually has. The thing is that it's not a heavily scaled over to Ritter because of the fact that it's hard to grade Mac Jones because his offense's weapons is not great. Because at least Ritter has Drake London, Kyle Pitts, even Jawan Johnson, who's been playing great as a tight end. And then now you have Bijan in the back. So their offensive weapons is great. But things like Ritter can at least scramble. Like
That's what
Mac
I
Jones
was going to say. Mac Jones is so slow. I would take
he's
Ritter just for that.
He's a pocket passer, and pocket passers' longevity in the league, unless you're an elite player, is not great. Like
I'm going to disagree. I think that Ritter has been better this season, but I would go with Mac Jones for kind of the reason that you brought up. Who the hell is Mac Jones throwing the ball to? Kendrick Bourne?
Hunter Henry.
Yeah, at least Ritter has Kyle Pitts and Drake London and has still found a way to prefer throwing the ball to the other team. Mac Jones hasn't really had that and has been running antiquated schemes for quite a while. So I would go with Mac Jones of the two, but neither have been good for obvious
no.
reasons. So that's where things stand after week 6. Jets big winners. Dolphins, I won't say big winners, but they took care of their business. Giants finding new ways to lose games.
That's right. That's right.
Giving their fans
they
hope
are
where
really,
most of them probably went in.
Gently.
They're really
Most fans
good at
went
it.
into that game going, you know what? I can't get hurt this game because I don't have expectations. And then they just find a way. It's rough, but
I mean,
we've been there before as Jets fans, haven't we, Connor?
I went into
Yes,
I went into that game thinking that Josh Allen was going to throw for like 5 touchdowns and like 300 yards. So,
Hey, at least that didn't happen.
well, I don't know. After that game, you almost wish it did happen in the sense that
Something would happen.
you thought they would have a chance to actually win, and then the life just gets sucked right out of you. So
It's the hope that kills you
it is
every single time.
So I have a question to pose because
Okay.
now we are now 6 weeks in, and
Mhm.
now
Thoroughly
we're
within
seeing a more you know clearer picture of how teams are. Who I'll rephrase this question from the beginning of the season or rehash this question. Who's going to win the AFC North?
Ooh. I mean, I would venture to stay with Ravens. Maybe Browns.
I would say the Ravens.
I'm gonna go with the Bengals. I think they figure it out.
Like with the injuries, if the Browns still had
They still have Nick Chubb. I'm
Nick
taking
Chubb,
them.
I'm taking the Browns. But because they don't,
And if
like
Deshaun Watson looked like even an average
If
quarterback,
you felt like
I
yeah,
would
playing,
take the Browns because their defense is so good. But they lost their top running back, and Deshaun Watson looks terrible.
yeah,
And he's apparently his shoulders falling off the bone like good barbecue.
yeah, like it's I think the Bengals. My gut leans Bengals right now because that Ravens loss to the Steelers really hurts the Ravens in overall like the division itself and like them sorting things out. So I'm really curious how that division is going to play out.
They're going to cannibalize itself,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Like
Because
always.
right now they're all above or at 500, and as a Jets fan, it's like, all right, I need teams in that area to start dropping games. The Chargers losing last night, for example, very helpful. It's going to happen. The Steelers can't score points. The Browns can't really score points either. The Ravens have receivers that can't catch. And the Bengals have just kind of been miscombobulated all season. So losses will come. It's just a matter of when these teams play each other, who can get the upper hand. Because they're going to play a lot of games against each other down the stretch.
And I have one final question, which I think is a fun one.
All right.
Who has more wins at the end of the season? San Francisco or the Detroit Lions?
say
Because they don't play
San Francisco.
because they don't play each other this year. And I think the Lions can be possibly the number one seed in the NFC.
Let me
Here,
Certainly
I'm
possible.
pulling up. I had the Lions schedule up right now. The Ravens are next week at the Ravens. Home Raiders, at Chargers, home Bears, home Packers, at Saints, at Bears, home against the Broncos, at Vikings, at Cowboys, home against the Vikings. That's very doable. Where they maybe drop 2 games, maybe. And then San Fran, you have the Vikings. Okay, at Vikings, home against the Bengals, who are looking to turn it around. At the Jaguars, home against the Buccaneers. At the Seahawks, at the Eagles, versus Seahawks, at Cardinals, versus the Ravens, at the Commies, and then the Rams. Like, there's a very real possibility that those two teams will be tied for first place at the end of the season.
right now I'm going to lean San Francisco.
Yeah,
I'm going to lean San Francisco, but it's
that's where
not a
I'm leaning too.
strong lean.
Although
I think
they lost, I think they're just too strong of a team.
I'm glad that you're even bringing it up as a possibility because
because
that means that you're taking the Lions seriously and they absolutely deserve to be put in the same category as San Francisco and Philadelphia. I think they've earned that.
Their
and
defense
the other
has
thing
been
too,
strong.
that's and the thing that no, I don't think anyone's not talking about really though. They haven't played any. I'm really curious at the Ravens because it's be a good test for the Lions defense because the only team that's really put points up on them is the Seahawks, which has been north of 30. Everybody else
I
has
think
not.
the Ravens win that game, personally.
I think the Lions win that one.
gonna be
I think that's the game
one
of
of
the
the
week
better
right
games.
there. My personal game of the
No,
week
E-
Sunday Night
next
Football.
week.
So no, Miami versus Eagles.
Yeah,
That's
we
that's
know that's
the
going to be a
matinee.
shootout.
I'm excited for that
Does
one.
that make it less good?
I don't, not less good, but I think in terms of like what's going to happen between the team, I don't know. I just feel like Lions Ravens is going to be a really close matchup, and
I
Eagles
think
are
that
close
Eagles
one
are now going to win
personally.
a 3-0 game against the Dolphins.
yeah, I think the Lions and Ravens is going to also be a shootout, and but
I think
I
it's going to
think
be
that
underrated. I'll say it that way.
I think they win that game. I think that like what's the spread for that game is right now? So I'm actually curious about this.
Probably like two and a half, maybe.
Baltimore 3-point favorites.
Okay.
Over under 42, which I would take the over for that one.
Yeah.
I'm not touching that.
I think the Lions are that good, and I know Monty is questionable. Um,
He's not playing.
he's not playing. But Jameer Gibbs should be back from what I've been hearing.
Mhm.
So you still have would say a top athletic runner for backfield, and like the Ravens, I think that they're fine. I think they're a good team, but I think the Lions have the edge. Like if this line was Baltimore -1, I'd be like, okay, I could see that. But I'm curious how as the week goes on where that line moves.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to leave things off. An exciting week 6 slate raised a lot of questions. Hopefully, we were able to, if not answer questions, at least you know it's a fascinating slate of games, and there's a lot still to be determined over the last few weeks. Aaron Rodgers might come back for all we know. There's
Yeah.
a lot of stakes still up for grabs the next few weeks of the season. Uh, guys, as always, thanks for
We'll talk hockey
chatting.
next. We'll talk hockey next week. I will say this
We will.
fact. I will say this right now though, because this game is on right now on my TV, and I had just been stupefied by this. Is that the San Jose Sharks are up 3-2 with only putting 11 shots on net compared to 30 from Carolina, and it's
I've
funny.
been I've
That
had
that
my
is
eye
pretty
on
funny, actually.
Colorado, Seattle, and it's kind of similar, but to a much less drastic degree.
San Jose sucks. Like they're going to be a bad team this year. No, hate me if you don't want San Jose fans, but like they are in a rebuild and go tank for your number one pick. Do it. But this them like the goaltending for Carolina not putting up right now is funny. I as a Devils fan, it makes me a little happy. But that's it.
All right. Well, for Connor Vandermark, Nick Izzo, and Tommy Grant, I'm Mitchell Lee. Thank you for listening to the weekly recess, and enjoy a fun week of NFL action ahead.
Have a good night.
See ya.
Let me
Deuces.
make sure that